Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler. Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
The same self, the only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another NFL Opinions of the Week. I'm Kevin. I'm joined by you could say we're coaches of the pod. We kind of encourage people, and that's kind of what a coach does, even though it's to higher stakes in the NFL. But the co-coach of the pod, Austin.
Yeah, this was kind of a tough list to come up with, especially because of the injuries and everything that happened last year. They can kind of cloud your judgment based on everything that happened. But I'm excited for this video. I'm interested to see where you have some players or some coaches, I guess.
Got it. Yeah, they are players. I got a little bit confused, but yeah, this one I think is going to be kind of similar to what we did last year at the top. But there was a lot of shakeup in the 10. I would like to shout out Zach Taylor. He did not make my list, but he was a close call. He did a great job with his quarterbacks and helping them contribute. And I really think he's a great coach and kind of proving me wrong. But he just didn't quite make the top 10. But I'm very curious to see. So I want to shout him out. And I think I'm trying to think of any other coaches. We'll have to see what I'm curious. Do you want to start with your 10?
My 10 is Zach Taylor. I don't have any necessarily honorable mentions. I didn't think there's only 32 coaches, so I felt like it was fine just leaving it how it is. But Zach Taylor, like you mentioned, him doing it with so many different quarterbacks and getting above 500 record, getting so close to the playoffs. Incredible season. And Kevin, I know you're a proven Zach Taylor hater, but it is what it is. And I've been very impressed with him over the last 3 seasons. And again, without your star quarterback going 9-8 in the toughest division, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, and I know my 10 is Mike McDaniel, and I know the Dolphins struggled against above 500 teams, but looking into next year, I think Mike McDaniel has a lot to build off of, and he's starting to learn more. I am curious to see what he does, but I think he's done a great job kind of handling Tua, and then I know Zach Taylor has dealt with different quarterbacks, but I think Mike Daniel has helped create a nice system, and he seems to have a culture environment. But so he is my top 10. He is my 10, but I'm curious to see who your 9 is.
My 9 is Kevin Stefanski. He had a great season with the Browns. Again, so many quarterbacks. Led the best defense in the NFL. He's just a little bit lower, even though he had such a great year, because he doesn't actually run the defense. He's an offensive head coach, but great year, and I think he is a top 10 head coach easily.
Yeah, my 9 is DeMeco Ryans. In just his first year, he did such a great job with the Texans. You could see his impact felt on the defensive side, and he was a coach of the year candidate for us. He really did such a great job in his first year. There is the kind of debate, which I could see the argument for saying it doesn't matter. CJ Stroud was incredible, and he is a defensive coach, so he doesn't really take charge for the offense. But I think he had such a great year that he deserved to be in the top 10.
Yeah, I think DeMeco Ryans deserves to be in my top 10 in the top 10 because he's my number 8. So we go back to back right there. What a year for him. And obviously, like you mentioned, CJ Stroud, that's something to consider, but you have to be a great head coach to do this in your first season. I'm really happy to see where this team goes moving forward.
Yeah, and my 8 is Dan Campbell. He's not the type of coach that I would imagine. He doesn't feel like X's and O's. He has a lot of people like Ben Johnson who are great at X's and O's. To me, he needed to be on this list given the culture and just kind of the mentality he has as the coach and the way he doesn't really falter. He kept going for 2-point conversions in the Lions Cowboys game, even though he could have just gone for the field goal. He kept going for it even at the biggest moments. To me, I think you can kind of see his identity on that Lions team, and I really was skeptical of the hire. But to me, he is a great coach. But personally, I kind of like my coach with a little bit more of X's and O's. But Dan Campbell deserves to be on this list, and he is a great coach.
Yeah. Okay. Who's your next coach?
My coach is a guy you already mentioned, Kevin Stefanski. Given what this offense went through and leading, Joe Flacco was a part of this, but kind of Kevin Stefanski helping the offense just do just enough with different quarterbacks. He really doesn't do much on defense, as you said, but to me, when I think about, okay, he does influence the offense. He is such a great coach and had such a phenomenal year that he deserved to be 7 on this list.
Yeah, I agree. I have him a little bit lower than you, but I definitely think he's a good head coach. My number 7 is Kevin O'Connell, another one that ran into a lot of problems regarding QB. He's an offensive head coach, and the defense wasn't the greatest. They had a better year than many expected, but still their defense wasn't great. And losing Kirk Cousins, I think, derailed their season. They had one of the hardest strength of schedules and still finished 7-10 with their star quarterback tearing his Achilles. So I still think he deserves to be here after leading a 13-4 season the year before. I think he's a great head coach.
Kevin O'Connell is a really good pick. I was skeptical of him too, but he's done a great job. Now I'm going to my 6, and this is a guy you're very familiar with, Matt LaFleur. I did not realize this Packers was, I think, the 4th youngest team to make the playoffs ever. And I was listening.
And they won a playoff game.
Yes, and they won a playoff game, of course. Could not forget that. But you can really see what he did without Aaron Rodgers and just kind of leading his team. So I don't really want to talk about it because it's kind of annoying just how the Packers keep getting great head coaches or Mike McCarthy, I know, struggled, but he did get him to the Super Bowl. And Matt LaFleur has really done a great job winning and creating kind of the environment. And he's more of an X's and O's guy. He's bordering on the top 5. I don't really want to talk too much about him because he is really good. And I'll let you talk about him if you have any more final thoughts on him.
We'll get to him in a second for me. My number 6 is John Harbaugh. He would be higher, even though he does have a Super Bowl. He would be higher if they didn't always struggle. It seems like in the playoffs this year, they lost their identity. And that kind of concerns me, but he's had so many great regular seasons, and he does have a Super Bowl. So I think this year he'll have another great job coaching and do an amazing job. But I'll go into my number 5. My number 5 is Matt LaFleur. It's amazing what this guy can do. No matter the situation, even with a backup QB in this year, a first-year starter. Jordan Love, amazing. Again, X's and O's. We had every wide receiver, Kevin, was either a sophomore or a rookie. It was always a first-year or second-year wide receiver for everybody, and it didn't matter. We still had one of the best offenses. Jordan Love was still up there in passing yards and passing touchdowns, and it was an amazing year, and what he can do is remarkable. So, I don't really have more than that.
Yeah. He is a great coach. It just annoys me how good he is because, the Packers. So for the listener, that's why I'm a little he's very good. But we flip-flop 5s and 6. My 5 is John Harbaugh. He has that longevity. I think there's something to be said about the longevity of a coach and kind of keeping your message to the same guys and not losing, not players losing you and forcing you out. Because we've seen that in the past with some coaches. You can kind of say that with Bill Belichick. He was there for so long, and his message kind of didn't get quite resonate in the locker room. But John Harbaugh, I understand your concerns, and that's why he's not higher because he does have a Super Bowl. He has changed his offense. It's just, I think there's more to be done, and that's compared to the guys ahead of him, that's why he was at 5 for me.
Okay. Who's your 4?
My 4 is Sean McVay. Sean McVay is a great offensive mind, but compared to the 3 guys in front of him, he really had to find his quarterback. He traded Jared Goff and got Matthew Stafford. He didn't win the Super Bowl, but it kind of shows he can still do well with a quarterback, but to really reach those high moments and be a high productive team, he needs a specific type of quarterback. And for him, it was Matthew Stafford. But the way he can just motivate his team and make some great plays is incredible, and that's why he's my 4.
We did the same 4. Sean McVay, Super Bowl winning coach. He's had some great seasons last year, leading them back to the playoffs. He's a great head coach. Still the youngest, I believe, in the league, which is crazy because he's been in the league for so long. It's insane, but yeah, it's a great pick by you. My number 3 is Dan Campbell. So you have Dan Campbell lower than me, but it's remarkable how much he can get out of his players. They continue to go up and exceed expectations, and they continue to play better and better and better. And this year, we'll see where they get. But last year, going all the way to the NFC Championship game for the first time since the 90s, is remarkable.
Yeah, that is a good pick. My 3 is Kyle Shanahan. And I'll talk about him, and then I have a question for you about Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is a guy that he has dealt with different quarterbacks. He has still made them productive, and he really helped Brock Purdy. But however, to Brock Purdy's credit, he is a great quarterback and has really helped this team. He's just Kyle Shanahan is one of the premier offensive minds, and this caused me to think, do you think, and he's also been with the Niners for a very long time, and does a great job of selecting coordinators, many coordinators from his teams. One, Mike McDaniel's on this list. I believe Sean McVay worked under him. Same thing with Matt LaFleur. I don't know if they were coordinators. I can't remember for Kyle Shanahan. But he does such a great job. Also, oh man, why am I forgetting his name? The Jets. Oh, Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans, coordinators under Shanahan. So great job at selecting and helping his talent get jobs, not just on the field, but also in the coaching staff. However, he does not have that Super Bowl ring. He struggled. He had his best shot last year. If it weren't for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, do you think Kyle Shanahan is kind of on the same trajectory as Andy Reid was before he won that Super Bowl with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes?
That may be true. He actually did not make my top 10, and it's mainly because he is maybe a top 2 or 3 offensive mind, but as a coach, it seems like in the biggest moments, I don't know if he's actually making his team better. It seems like we go back to the Atlanta Super Bowl and he kind of decides not to run the ball at all in the second half when he can just run the game away. You look at the Chiefs Super Bowl the first time, they're up 10 in the fourth quarter. That should be a win. And he decides to make bad play calls. And then this past one, making certain decisions to either go for a field goal or not. Look, I think he can get it done, but at some point you have to get over the hump, right? Like a lot of these coaches are young and they haven't had the time to, or in Sean McVay's case, they took him a little bit, but then they got it. And when you get it, you solidify yourself as a great head coach. But Shanahan's had so much talent around him. He's had McCaffrey, he's had Kittle, he's had Trent Williams. Those are probably the 3 best at their position. And when you have those guys, and then you look at the defensive side, and you have Nick Bosa, and you have Fred Warner, and you talked about in our last video, Travarius Ward. Like there's so many different great players on his team that I do wonder how much is he really inputting or how much is he knocking them down or bringing them up. So I have my doubts, but he's definitely a good head coach. He's above half. But again, I do wonder how much it's him contributing because in the big moments, I don't know how much he's actually making his team better. Which like Dan Campbell, for example, I can see it. It's visible that he's making the team better. I don't necessarily see that with Kyle Shanahan. But yeah, we could see him be the next Andy Reid because Reid, it took a while and he had to get the right situation and then he came through. I think we're going to have the same top 2 though.
Yeah, I figured. It's kind of similar to last year, but yeah, I kind of view I think the questions you raise are valid about Kyle Shanahan, and I think those may have been questions people were asking about Andy Reid before he got Patrick Mahomes and started going to those conference championships, because he had success with Alex Smith, he had success with the Eagles. It's just he couldn't quite get over that hump. So that's why I was like, oh wait, someone was talking about Kyle Shanahan, and I'm like, I wonder if Andy Reid, because Andy Reid is of course in the top 2 for me. And I'm like, he's a great offensive mind, but would I feel differently if he didn't have a Super Bowl? And that would be yes, kind of similar to Shanahan. But yeah, I didn't really have a doubt for 1 and 2. My 2 is Mike Tomlin. It kind of stayed the same. You talked about Dan Campbell. Mike Tomlin just produces a great team, a good team. It's not a losing team. No matter what, he produces a team and just can get players to do well no matter what.
Yeah, I had Mike Tomlin at my 2.
Oh,
I think I had him at my 1 last year.
you had him as your 1 last year.
But I think Andy Reid winning another one, and I do think he makes so many players just better on the offensive side. It's so close between those 2, and they're definitely my top 2. Mike Tomlin every year, man. Every year. It seems like without fail they will make the playoffs or be above 500, even when the darkest out there. And so that's why I'm not a lot of people are worried about the Steelers this year. What are they going to do with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields? I trust Mike Tomlin. And then with Andy Reid, he's been remarkable ever since he's been with the Chiefs, and especially these last 5-6 years. I don't think that changes.
Yeah, this year for Mike Tomlin could be the year where he kind of pushes that one, given what happens with Russell Wilson. And if Russell Wilson gets back, to me, I would credit Tomlin for that. I think you can give credit to Russell Wilson, but Mike Tomlin would be the guy where I'm like, okay, he made it work. Just some coach recently, Sean Payton tried, did not work. Did not work with Nathaniel Hackett. But yeah, Andy Reid is such a great offensive mind, and I think he does a great job trusting his players and kind of riding the emotions. We've talked about the Kelsey moment. To me, that took a lot from Andy Reid, even though we both agree Kelsey shouldn't have done that. To me, that took a lot for Reid to understand what was happening and not overreact in the biggest stage, which was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, this is going to be a big year for Mike Tomlin. I think he has Kyle Shanahan and Mike Tomlin still have something to prove because Mike Tomlin hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2009.
Yes.
9, yeah. So it's been a while, but I still believe that he is an amazing head coach, and this is a big year for the Steelers because there was talks about him getting fired, and if Mike Tomlin gets fired, I do think like a guy like Mike Vrabel would have been in my top 10. But he got fired. I think Bill Belichick still was a top 10 head coach if he was in the right situation. But I probably, if you asked me before last season, Sean McDermott or some of these other guys. So it's easy to fall, and it's hard to stay at the top. But these 2 at the top have been there for a while, and I'm excited to see how they move on next season.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens next year. Let us know what you think, and we appreciate you listening. And let us know your thoughts on the comments. We always appreciate them. And thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.